Does this look familiar? If you've been playing Tekken 8 Ranked for any time at all, the answer is going to be yes. So the next important question is, how do you feel about it? To kick things off, what even is one and done? The answer is simple. It's when you finish the first match and just leave. Doesn't have to be a win or a loss, you simply leave instead of rematching your opponent. To people who mostly play other genres, this might sound like a crazy thing to be upset about. That's just not something that other games do. Be it StarCraft, Quake, Overwatch, or League of Legends, once you're done, you're done. There is no option for a rematch, you just go back to the queue and wait for the next game. So, why are fighting games any different? Well, there are several reasons for it. It could be the arcade origins of fighting games, back when the winners stayed on top and challengers would try to take their spot for as long as they had the coins for it. It could also be the competitive nature of fighting games. We all know that more games are better for establishing who is the better player, and the community has settled that first to two is the bare minimum. However, there is a factor that matters even more than the other two: time. You've likely played at least a dozen or more multiplayer games. Among them, is there a single one where a complete match takes less than 5 minutes? I'm going to guess that the answer is no. Call of Duty matches are among the shortest and they still expect you to devote roughly 10 minutes of your time. If we look at some of the most played games like CS, Dota, League, PUBG or Apex, that time is even longer, usually anywhere from 15 to 30 or even 40 minutes. What about fighting games? All of them are going to be different, but since I'm focusing on Tekken 8, I decided to look at 100 different ranked matches and timed how long they took, from the moment the intro ends until the end of the final round. The average time was squarely around the 2.5 minute mark. I noted down the shortest and longest too, but those are bound to change with more samples. What's important here is that your average match is so short. Now consider how much time goes into finding a match. The set ends, you load back into matchmaking, you wait to find another opponent, accept them, then spend time loading into another match. Under normal conditions, the whole process might take 1.5 or 2 minutes to get into another game. So if you play for an hour and everybody one and dones, you can end up wasting almost half of that time doing nothing. And it only gets worse depending on your rank and region. And if there's one thing people hate with a passion, it's having their time wasted. This is something that's universal across all video games, like having your progress reset because of a bug, losing a 40-minute game because your teammate decided to troll, or not being able to play the game with your friends because the servers were full. It's so immensely frustrating, especially when you only have a limited amount of free time to play video games. Imagine carving out 2 hours for a Tekken session and then you spend most of it just waiting for a match, hoping that the next time they will actually finish the set. I think it's easy to see now why people have such a strong response to the whole one and done issue. There are smaller issues here too. First one is fairly useless for any competitive player. You don't really get anything out of it. It's not enough to get matchup experience. If you lose, you don't get a chance to adapt and make a comeback. Even if you win and they leave, it's not as satisfying because you've beaten someone who didn't even try to adjust their playstyle to beat you. But all these issues pale in comparison to wasted time. This begs the question, if it's so annoying, why is it also so common? Why do something like this?
Why are you running? Why are you running?
There are plenty of reasons, a few entirely fair and easy to understand, but some others not so much. So let's get the good reasons out of the way first. If the connection sucks, you obviously should end the set. Netcode and hardware issues end up affecting both players, so it's in everyone's interest to move on to the next fight. If there's an emergency or you simply have any real-life reason to stop playing, then no problem there either. The issues only begin when people start leaving for malicious or petty reasons. There are thousands of gamers who play ranked not for the sake of competitive matchmaking, but for the sake of achieving the highest rank possible. This mentality can lead to enough negative results that it's almost worth making its own video about it, but for now we only need to talk about the people who care about those rank points just a little bit too much. When they lose the first match, instead of risking more points, they simply leave to find someone else they can actually beat. After all, points is all that matters. Sometimes they might even quit after winning if the game was too close, because who knows, maybe their opponent will win the next match, better not risk it and first to win someone else. This approach usually spreads to character matchups as well. Top tiers are obviously denied rematches for being too strong, but no character is safe from this mindset. If your character is uncommon, people might not rematch because they don't know the matchup, and they will not try to learn it because your character is not common enough. And of course they can always claim that your character is cheesy, cheap or brain dead. Now, the chances are the vast majority of people watching this are not the kind to one and done, so hopefully I'm preaching to the choir here. Nevertheless, I'd still like to point out a few obvious benefits of finishing the sets that you find hopeless or simply want to avoid for one reason or another. Number 1, points don't matter. Just forget about them. Ranking up is something that will happen naturally if you just play the game and get better at it. And there's no better way to improve than playing against other people. So you're better off spending your time playing instead of searching for a match. Number 2, experience. Much of improvement in fighting games comes from attaining muscle memory and experience. By playing more, you will be much more comfortable with your character in a variety of situations, which has a nice side effect of helping you keep composure where others might falter. Number 3, matchup knowledge. The only way to get better at fighting other characters is knowing what they do and how people play them. You're not going to find that out if you avoid them, and no, not running into them often enough is not a good excuse. Trust in your brain. Even if you don't play against a certain character every single day, your matchup knowledge will not just evaporate. Number 4, adaptation. This is an absolutely massive skill in fighting games, but I don't have to tell you that. You've probably seen plenty of sets where someone was down 2 rounds and then won 3 times back to back. All because they were able to recognize what their opponent does and then adjust accordingly. Learning such a skill in a first to one set is simply not possible, because without a rematch, neither you nor your opponent get an opportunity to change. Number 5, Tekken is volatile. When you lose a round in 15 seconds, it's easy to feel like your opponent is too strong or that you simply have no chance. But you have to remember how volatile this game is. There's a reason why we have 5 possible rounds instead of the traditional 3. Even if you get rolled in one match, just avoiding a few mistakes and slightly changing your playstyle could completely turn the tides in your favor. Let's be real here. There could be 1,000 reasons to run a full set, but at the end of the day, change has to come from developers rather than players. But what's the best way to handle it? Changing the distribution of ranked points would likely be the least intrusive way to incentivize a full set. But it's also likely to mess up the actual MMR distribution, so that's not really a great option. If we want to change something, it has to become a requirement. For example, NRS has already done something like that with Mortal Kombat. If you quit after winning but not actually finishing the set, it counts as you losing. We actually asked our followers on Twitter if they would accept something like this in Tekken, and surprisingly enough, the vast majority were in favor of that, even though the sample size was far from optimal. But it makes sense. Ranked is supposed to be the competitive mode, so asking for just 5 to 10 minutes to run a full set is really not that much. If someone doesn't like that, they can still choose to play a quick match or hop into the fight lounge. Even a forced first to 2 is not likely to fix the problem completely, but it would still make things much better. So, what do you guys think about this issue? Maybe there are other solutions that you have in mind, or a different perspective on the topic entirely. We are eager to hear your opinion in the comments. Thank you for watching this video all the way to the end, and see you next time.